Every week I get to see behind the scenes about the data of how many people are actually listening to this podcast. We have people in Japan, Australia, Southern America, and North America that are tuning in on a weekly basis to hear some of our incredible guests. But one of the best things to continue growing that reach is if you would actually hit subscribe or follow. This helps with the metrics so that way you are the first ones to get notified when new podcast episodes drop, but also continues to spread that reach to other individuals who might need to hear some of these incredible lessons that people are sitting on the opposite side of the table from me are sharing. So do me one favor today and hit subscribe. Thank you. It was 1943. Edwin Land was on a family trip in New Mexico with his wife and their 3-year-old daughter, Jennifer. He'd been taking photographs throughout the day, and when his daughter Jennifer asked to see the pictures, Land explained that she couldn't see them. Well, not yet at least. The film had to be developed. It would take time, and that's just how photography worked. But Jennifer didn't understand why. Not in a frustrated way, in a way that only small children ask questions, with genuine, complete sincerity. No assumption that the current reality is the only possible reality there is. She just wanted to know why she couldn't see the picture right now. And Land couldn't stop thinking about that question. For 3 years, he thought about it and looked for an answer. And then finally, in 1947, he stood before the Optical Society of America and unveiled the instant camera. A photograph was taken and developed in 60 seconds. In 1948, a Boston department store put 57 units on sale before Christmas, assuming the stock would last until the second production run. All 57 cameras sold out on the first day. At its peak, Polaroid was enabling people to make about 1 billion photographers a year. Steve Jobs called Land a national treasure. The instant camera changed how an entire civilization experienced memory. And it started because a 3-year-old asked a question that her father refused to dismiss. To understand why that moment mattered, you have to understand who Edwin Land was before it. He was born in Connecticut in 1909, the son of a scrap metal dealer. At 13, while he was attending a summer camp, he encountered polarized light for the first time and became obsessed with it, in the way that some people become obsessed with things and never fully recover. He then went to Harvard, but dropped out after his first year, not because he was failing, but because the degree felt like a detour from the actual work he was excited about. He then would sneak into labs at Columbia University at night to test his theories. He used the New York Public Library as his research facility, and he had no credentials, no institution, no financial backing. Yet, he invented the first practical polarized light filter anyway. He went back to Harvard then, still didn't finish a degree, started a company with his physics professor in 1932, and then by 1937, it had become the Polaroid Corporation. During World War II, his technology was used in dark adaptation goggles, target finders, and the first passively guided smart bombs. His work helped design the optics for the U-2 spy plane. He then advised presidents on national security, and through all of it, what drove him was never the accolades or the institution or the credential he never finished earning. It was the problem in front of him. He said once that his goal was to do work that was manifestly important and nearly impossible. That was the standard. Manifestly important and nearly impossible. Not safe or proven. Then his daughter asked why she couldn't see the picture now, and he went to work immediately. Jennifer's question wasn't sophisticated. It wasn't a technical question. It wasn't the kind of question that a scientist or an engineer would ask. It was the kind of question that adults have long since stopped asking because they've already accepted the answer. That's just how it works. That's just how it works is one of the most expensive phrases in human history. It's the phrase that protects every broken system, every unnecessary limitation, every problem that has been around so long that people have stopped seeing it as a problem at all. It becomes the wallpaper of reality. You stop noticing it because it has always been there. But children haven't learned to stop noticing yet. They ask why with complete seriousness because they genuinely want to know. And most of the time, adults give them an answer that is really just a more sophisticated version of that's just how it works. And the children learns to stop asking. And another person who might have changed something learns to accept the given reality instead. Land didn't do that. He took his daughter's question seriously enough to spend 3 years answering it. Here's what I want you to hear. The question itself was not the invention. The question was the door. Land's obsession, his scientific training, his 17 years of working on problems that most people had given up on, all of that walked through the door that Jennifer opened. But without the question, the door stays closed. Without someone treating a 3-year-old's curiosity as a legitimate problem worth solving, 1 billion people a year don't get to see their memories appear before their eyes. This is what paying attention actually looks like. Not the grand strategic insight, not the genius in the boardroom. A father on a family trip listening to his daughter ask something simple and refusing to let the simple answer satisfy him. The people who change things are rarely the ones who ask the most complicated questions. They're the ones who take the simple questions seriously enough to actually answer them. Think about your own life for a moment. The problems that are sitting right in front of you that you've stopped seeing because you've accepted them as the given reality. The friction in your work that you've explained away. The tension that might be sitting in a relationship that you've normalized. The gap between how things are and how they could be that you've stopped noticing because you've been inside it long enough that it starts to feel like the floor. What would change if you took one of those things as seriously as Land took his daughter's question? Land said, every significant invention must come to a world that is not prepared for it. He didn't say this as a complaint. He said it as a description of how things actually work. If a world were already prepared for it, it wouldn't be significant. The preparation is precisely what the invention has to create. You cannot wait for readiness. Readiness does not come first. The thing comes first, and readiness then follows. Most people wait. They wait until the timing is right, until they have enough resources, until someone with authority tells them it's a good idea, until the market signals that there's demand. And sometimes that patience is wisdom, but often is just fear wearing the costume of prudence. Land never waited for permission. He built because the thing was worth building. He dropped out of Harvard because the degree was slower than the work he was trying to do. He snuck into labs at night because the problem didn't keep business hours. He spent 3 years answering a question his daughter asked because the question deserved an answer, regardless of whether anyone had asked for one. The instant camera didn't exist because there was market research showing demand for it. It existed because one man took one question seriously enough to build the answer. And here's the part of the story that most people don't know. After 43 years of building Polaroid into one of the most recognized brands in the world, Land was pushed out. The board could see that digital photography was coming, and Land couldn't pivot. The company he had founded and led and poured his entire life into removed him in 1980. He didn't collapse. He didn't stop. He founded the Roland Institute for Science at Harvard and spent his remaining years researching his theory of color vision. He held 535 patents when he died in 1991. He was still working at that point because the work was never about the institution. The work was about the problems, and the problems didn't go away when the board voted. That is what it looks like when your identity is in the vision and not in the outcome. When what you are building is bigger than where you are building it to. When the question matters more than who gets credit for an answer. Jennifer Land grew up. She eventually understood why she couldn't see the photograph right away in 1943. And then, a few years later, she could. Her father had answered her question. And I think about the questions that are sitting unanswered in your life right now. Not the complicated ones, the simple ones. The ones you stopped asking because someone gave you a version of, that's just how it works. And eventually you accepted it. Maybe it's a gap in your marriage you've normalized. The way your team operates that's always frustrated you, but you've never actually challenged. The thing about your own life that you know isn't working, but you've explained away so many times, it has started to feel like a permanent condition. Land's lesson isn't that you need to be a genius. He was extraordinarily brilliant, yes, but the thing that started everything wasn't his brilliance. It was his willingness to treat a simple question as if it deserved a real answer. You don't have to invent the instant camera. You just have to stop walking past the questions that everyone around you has already accepted. Every significant thing must come to a world that is not prepared for it, which means the world not being prepared is not a reason to wait. It's just a decision of what comes first. So here's what I want to ask you. What question have you stopped asking because you've accepted the answer too easily? And what would happen if you took it seriously enough to actually answer it? If this episode made you think, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Thank you.